Welcome to the Austin Biz Buzz, the podcast that builds the buzz about Austin business. So kick up your feet and turn your brain on. It's time to talk Austin business right now. Here's Herdy.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Austin Biz Buzz, where we build the buzz about Austin business. And we got a special guest on tonight, John Russell, Principal Advisor for the Russell Consulting Group. But before we talk to John on the podcast, I want to thank my sponsor, Mike O'Neill, the Money Coach LLC. Mike's not only a good friend, he's also been a past client. And when he heard I was relaunching the podcast for the Austin Biz Buzz, he was excited to sponsor the 35 shows where we started in October, and we'll go through next year. And this is all about supporting Austin business. And the cool thing about this podcast, because I have a sponsor, I can bring on some of the small businesses and businesses in Austin to kind of talk a little bit about what they do and give you guys that are listeners some opportunities to dive into some of these businesses. So without further ado, you can go check out Mike O'Neill, mkoneil.com. corporate trainer and corporate speaker. All right, tonight's guest on the show, John Russell, Principal Advisor. He's the Russell Consulting Group. He specializes in bringing together all components necessary for long-term business growth, profitability, and success, and ensuring that they are working in harmony. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And you know, I'm finally glad to get you on this thing. We've done some podcasts in the past, but the nice thing is we're going to get to learn a little bit more about, dive in a little bit deeper about exactly what you do to work with clients. And so you've given me a couple questions to ask you tonight, and we're going to run through these. John, we're going to try to spend about 30 minutes on the podcast tonight, if that's okay with you.
Sounds good.
And we're going to run through these. So tell us, John, let's get started. So tell us a little bit about when did you officially launch your consulting business, and why did you specifically get into this business?
I launched the Russell Consulting Group in 1995 after selling successful businesses in Honolulu, Hawaii. And the incubus of that was a result of two things. Number one, over the years, while I was in Honolulu, I was bombarded continuously with business owners who were seeking advice. And what I discovered is that, every business seems to face basically the same challenges: understanding and sticking with their vision, their mission, their strategies, and their objectives. And then, of course, how that all comes together to support all these facets. And it doesn't matter if you're a large corporation or if you're a small business, the seem to be the same. So anyway, when I look back on what I enjoyed doing the most over the years, it was helping companies. So the Russell Consulting Group was launched to do just that, but take a slightly different angle to it. And where that comes from is the need to make sure that if you're building a successful business strategy, it really does need to be in sync with a phenomenal marketing strategy. And we'll dive into that a little bit deeper later on.
Yeah, John, for those people listening in on the podcast that may not know you, let's go ahead and give them some contact information if we can. Let's give them the website and also the best way for them to contact you.
The website is therussellconsultinggroup.com. That's the Russell Consultinggroup.com. A lot of people just pick up the phone and give me a call, which is fine. Please make sure you're a real person and not a spammer.
Yeah, exactly.
My number is 512-217-3205. That's 512-217-3205. And I am generally available between the hours of 9 a.m. through about 6 p.m. Monday through Friday.
And so, John, what you're saying is don't use my contact page to contact me to spam me. Is that what you're saying? That
That
doesn't
would be
happen.
correct.
That doesn't happen to any of us, does it? All right, there we go. All right, so to move on in some of your questions tonight on the podcast, what are the common issues and challenges that many large business clients have had that you've dealt with?
And when we mention large business clients, we're talking about Fortune 500 companies that I have gotten involved and worked with and helped to change. And when we talk about changing, we're also talking about culture changes. And culture very much is one of the biggest challenges, especially if they are expanding statewide to regional, nationally, and then internationally. Everywhere that you expand into, there is a different culture expanding towards. And it's important to assimilate the business culture with the local culture. The other thing is big companies tend to be giant ships which take more time to turn. There have been some times when I went up directly to the food chain, to the top, to the CEOs, and discovered that one of the CEOs didn't even want to be running his just under $1 billion corporation. He had said that it was given to him by his father, and he wanted to be doing something entirely different, a fireman. There's a story where that comes from too. We can talk about that in a separate podcast. But anyway, keeping in touch with who you are and your identity and how that ties in with your customer retention and your customer nurturing.
So I imagine the law of expansion on that issue becomes important.
That is correct.
If they
Yeah.
keep the culture and everything correct. So what about a small business? How do they tie into that question?
A lot of challenges that small businesses have is we generally start out with one or two business owners in this scenario, a partnership or a single owner. And what happens is they do not seek adequate counsel on what their marketing strategy is. And every business is trying to reach generally a different audience. So one size does not fit all. A lot of people tend to even not understand that there are 34 different channels in marketing. When they think of marketing channels, they might strictly think in terms of social media, digital marketing, and maybe traditional. And within traditional, there's all kinds of additional channels. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing is they might try to do their marketing in-house. They'll say, well, Becky, she had her own Facebook group and she's really great and she's working as a hostess in a restaurant now and she can be managing the whole social media campaign. But if Becky leaves and she's good, everything falls into disarray. The other thing is it's better to leave things to the experts, to the professionals. The final thing is not really understanding how to scale, and that means you really need to look at the big picture first, where you want to go, zero back into where you are, and then look at how you can scale. And that includes what is it going to cost? What's the investment to scale? And can you really manage that? And if you need more money, how do we need to plan accordingly for it? For the love of God, when I see a small business owner that mortgages their house, take off and there's a high risk that they'll lose the business, that's just not a good idea. So better planning.
Yeah, I agree with that. So in conjunction with that question, John, what have you found to be that great disconnect that small business have when it comes to understanding marketing?
I think it's the assumptions. As I said a minute ago, primarily today, there is, particularly with small businesses, the assumption is the definition of marketing is purely digital. And that's simply not the case. Digital media and digital marketing is really an excellent vehicle. I highly recommend it. Sometimes it needs to dominate the mix. but you really do want to have a careful mix in your marketing strategy. If you're trying to reach millennials in particular or Gen Zs, all right, that's going to be a great vehicle to use. And within the digital and social media realm, we know that there's all kinds of other channels that we can go after. The second thing is, if though you have an older audience and maybe there's actually a product that you're trying to really get out there and define by brand, then outdoor media or sometimes TV or radio. The great example in our outdoor media was the famous Coppertone ad that anyone who can remember knows how powerful that ad is and understands how well it worked in really getting the point across who the company's brand was. So that's one thing that I believe small business owners fail to understand. The other thing is there is such a fine line when you're scaling your business and bringing on employees. There's a fine line between being a real jerk, being oppressive to employees, and being kind of a Mr. or Mrs. Softy, if you will, where then they take advantage of you. It took me 10 years to figure that out. I went to business consultants to make sure I had finally gotten that down, but that could be costly.
Yeah, and I would say that on the business marketing side for a small business, you would agree, John, and this isn't in your questions, but just to follow up a little bit on that, wouldn't you agree that these small businesses, before they just start throwing stuff up to stick the wall, they need to sit down with somebody like yourself or somebody in this arena that can help work out a strategy for them that understands what they're trying to accomplish in their market?
Oh, absolutely. That goes without saying. And if a company is not in a position, and this goes back to really knowing what they need to do to scale, and the marketing is very much a part of this. And if they're not in a position to afford professional marketing, then they need to wait, or they need to get the adequate working capital to do this. I have seen many, particularly small businesses that get sucked into a trap on doing the wrong kind of marketing, and that drives them
Yep.
really into bankruptcy.
Yeah, they rely on it, then they're dead. That's cool. All right, so you've been known to have a very nice vetted network of trusted partners, John, and you have these partners for multiple business support in the clients you serve. So how does that synergy work? How do these partners work with you?
Well, that works really well, and I've taken a lot of time and energy to, make sure that I go through the list of potential partners that want to be part of the Russell Consulting Group and vet them. We all share the same philosophy that, it's not really about making money. It's really about seeing the fruits from all of our efforts collectively to make a company we're working with become phenomenally successful. I mean, that's just, to me, that is so exciting and such a driver. Integrity and high level of moral integrity is other types of ad agencies, bankers, business lawyers, and we work with also people that can help clients go into international expansion and support, so logistics. So commercial brokers who can help facilitate the expansion locally and help identify a good location for their build out, things like that. And we just have a blast working together. So if we have a client and we go ahead and do a business planning strategy or business planning day, coming out of that engagement, that we'll be able to recommend who they should be working with. And then as we continue, we make sure that everyone is speaking to one another. So the client really is surrounded by really great experts.
Yeah, and I would say also part of those vetted business trusted partners you work with, John, can also, you can work with companies that can niche fill a marketing, position within the company. Maybe they do something really good specifically. That's where somebody like my business would come in, right? Where they do something very specific in a very niche market, correct? So you
Yeah,
have all sorts of multiple people you can bring in for these kind of things also, correct?
that's correct. But Harry, you really, I must say that you really have the sweet spot corner of that certain type of market if our client needs it and requires it, because I've seen the end results of your work. But there are other partners that's what they do. They're really good at what they do. That's their sweet spots. And that's where it's fun because we completely synergize to the benefit of the clients we're serving.
Yeah, and I would imagine that just excites a business too that you're working with, John, that knows that they're being taken care of. How nice is it that a business owner, or whether it's a large or small business, knows that there's a team in there working on their behalf that really cares about their business? I would think that's real rewarding myself. At least I've
Well,
experienced that, working with business, right?
yeah, you're right. And not only that, but here's where it really gets fun. I am able to, well, I like to connect dots, and I like to, not only connect the right dots with the partners, but with existing clients that I may be working with. And we have one client that they are really, really in a strong growth position. And there's other clients that I am incorporating some of what they're doing together. So what we do is we create a super synergy of working alliances, and their businesses end up growing 3 or 4 times faster as a result. I mean, I see that happen over and over again, and that's really awesome.
That's good. So, guys, we're about halfway through the podcast talking to John Russell, the principal advisor of the Russell Consulting Group. You can find him at the website, therussellconsultinggroup.com. His phone number is 512-217-3205. We're going to take a short break, John, and we're going to hear a little short message from our sponsor, Mike O'Neill, Money Coach LLC. We'll be right back.
Thanks, Herdy. I'm really proud to be sponsoring the Austin Biz Buzz. If you'd like your business to be more profitable, I'd love to talk with you. That's what we do here at Money Coach LLC is we help businesses be more profitable. Love to talk with you, see if we can help you out, make you better. You can find us at the internet at www.mkoneal.com. That's www.mkoneal.com. Thanks. Hope to see you soon.
Okay, guys, we're back talking to John Russell, Principal Advisor of the Russell Consulting Group. We've had some great answers to some of the questions we proposed to him tonight. So, John, to move on in the podcast, over the past recent year, you've seen some pretty common kind of clients reaching out to you. Can you kind of dive into this a little bit?
Yeah, there have been clients that have needed some turnaround strategies. Some of our partners who are business brokers came to me and they said, look, their business can be worth a lot more money if you start working with them and help them scale a little bit further and get some disciplines in place. And then we've told them in a couple years from now, then they'll be in a better position to really sell and make a lot of money. So turnaround strategies, scaling strategies. We've had some clients that are going into rapid expansion nationally now, and they started out here locally. That's been really, really exciting. They're in the service sector. The first one I mentioned as an example was in they were in the consumer sector. And then there have been a number of professional services, law firms in particular, CPA firms that wanted to expand their operations, really put a much larger footprint here in the local market. And then last but not least, another financial investment and employee benefits company that's scaling all over the place. And I'm proud to say that they grew 500% last year. And
Wow.
I put together their business partnership. I said this person needs to be working with that person, and that's part of the fun. It's moving the chess pieces together and knowing that they're going to work in harmony. I mean, that's part of the fun of this whole thing.
Kind of the magic of what you do, actually, and that's the beauty of your service. And so, I was thinking the other day, which leads to the next question, is that do most businesses, I'm going to have you explain build to sell and how that works, but do you find that a lot of businesses never think about when they start how they're going to ramp it up to maybe possibly sell it? Can you talk a little bit about the build to sell
That
and how that
happens
works?
Yeah, that happens too much, and it's tragic because it doesn't happen enough as far as them realizing the true benefit of building a company to sell. The first thing is to understand that the objective is not to create a job for yourself, but to really create a business that can be scaled, and you will not be selling yourself then at the point of succession. You're actually selling a business model that works. A lot of small businesses, it takes them a long time to understand how this really works and benefits them. Here's a great example. Just about everyone has financial advisors, and the financial advisor puts together, a growth strategy so that when they retire later on, they have I like to call it a silver parachute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wouldn't it be nice if every business owner got a golden parachute, just like big corporate CEOs? So the golden parachute is the end result of the business being healthy at the point of selling, and they get a lot of money from that. Now, this also ties in, though, with really making sure that they're working with good financial advisors who can then take the silver parachute and the golden parachute, merge the whole thing together, work with the CPA firms, and end up coming out with a platinum parachute. Now, a lot of small business owners, by the way, have been frightened of the idea of selling their company because they don't know what to do.
Right.
When we paint a picture of what they could be doing, they could even be going back into business for themselves and add to their platinum parachute portfolio later on. Then all of a sudden they get excited. But yeah, that's great when we can make that happen, but it's very sad when business owners fail to understand that. Baby boomers in particular, right now, this is the golden age of baby boomers selling their business. And the smart ones are putting together a strategy to make that happen. We work with a lot of them.
That's great. So, you guys keep in consideration how John can help you with that. I mean, John's put me on the spot a couple of times about this because I've kind of explained to him that I bring a lot of information to the table, but not really a niche model. So maybe John down the road will still talk about that, right? And so John's been in my face about this, by the way, just so y'all know. Okay. So, hey, thank you very much. John is not one to, when you meet with him, he'll tell you how it is, and that's what I like about him. He's straightforward, but he's also got a real good way of approaching you. So you guys will love working with John if you decide to bring you into the fold. So, John, just leading right into that segue, what are some of the a couple of success stories you might want to tell us about on the podcast?
I think one was we had a string of deli restaurants, and they were not doing as well as they should have been doing. And so I was brought in to take a look at it. And the bottom line was the employees were not engaged. They didn't care. They didn't care because the owners did not realize it, but subconsciously they had lost interest. And their way of dealing with that was to really show disinterest in the employees, who then showed a gross disinterest in the customers they were supposed to be serving. I can still remember when I walked into the first one, I said, "How long have those cobwebs been up there?" And when the server on the other side finally got off his iPhone and looked up, he said, I don't know. So there's a story where that goes. Another big success story. And by the way, the business owner, after being sent on a weekend, I sent him, he and his business partner down to a place for 3 days. I said, I want you to take 1 day, just clear your head, 1 day to work on this questionnaire, and the next day just clear your head again, and then we're going to meet on the 4th day. Came back, they said, well, this has been really a good exercise. We decided that we don't want to be in business anymore. I said, what do you want to do? We want to move to Spain and retire. I said, well, let's do that. So what we ended up doing was making the necessary corrections in their company so that there was additional value. So when the company sold, it actually sold for more than they ever imagined. And then the new buyers ended up working with us from that point on. Another one was a big corporation over in Europe, and they had a real issue with culture. They had the Hungarians and the Czechs in the same environment, and that was like getting the Aggies and
the Longhorns together.
There you go. That was exactly what was going on. And I said, let's get them out of the same, but get them out of Prague. You send the Hungarians back to Budapest, and so let them compete. Let's harness that level of competition, that spirit of competition, make it work to the betterment of this company. So the Central European operations exploded after we got that fixed. Another one was a company where the customer service was just so bad, and it was because the CEO didn't even want to be in business for himself, but he thought he was supposed to be. So we talked about how we can correct that. We got rid of the CEO. We were able to correct the deficiencies in the operation. And when we say we got rid of him, we created a succession plan where we could have him replaced, and he was a happy camper. And I mean, there's so many stories. We go back 25 years now, and the list goes on and on. I'd be happy to talk about that more in detail, more individual stories at a different time.
And it's nice to have success stories, John, at that level, and commend you for your wise insight into some of these businesses and what they need to do. So what do you think is the difference between a business consultant and a business strategist? And how's the approach a little different when you're working with business?
A business strategist will look at the big picture. It's kind of like a general, a military general, the 5-star general, looking at a map and determining what is the best way to penetrate the market or invade the enemy territory, knock the enemy off the field and gobble them up. That requires a smart strategy. That requires really identifying the correct markets and really putting together the right teams, all those things. Where a consultant will be seen as the general under the 5-star general, making sure that things are going correctly. I see a strategist as someone who creates the plan and implements the strategy. The consulting role would be implementing the objectives to support the strategy.
Yeah, that's a good description. That's super. So I guess we're going to wrap up our podcast with one final question. And I know this is one of your pet peeves, or not pet peeves, but maybe where you can really, really help a business is tell us when a business, determine when a business is ready to scale, or if that business really needs to shut down, because you've been in a lot of these situations. Can you kind of tell us when we know we're one or the other?
Well, correct. And, one of the qualifications before I can even consider working with a client will be that they not only need to have and be in a position where they can afford to retain services for a great strategy, but more importantly, to implement the strategy once it's put together. And if they're not in that position, then it might be better for them to kind of rethink where they're at and what they need to be doing. There have been some companies that have grown. We had as an example, a restaurant recently, and they had moved their location. Unfortunately, when they moved their location, they didn't take into consideration how the demographics were different in that new location. And what they were serving was not at all consistent with what that demographic wanted or expected, and yet their price points were the same as a competing restaurant. I'm going to go ahead and say, Jack Allen's is a great restaurant, and that would be the price point that they would be competing with. And yet what they were offering and their food was completely opposite
Yeah.
that level of quality of food. And the reason why they didn't want to change is because they said they couldn't afford it. They just wanted to throw money after marketing. The tragedy, though, was that marketing doesn't work unless you really identify and understand your clients.
Yep.
And you sit down and you talk with the employees and make sure they understand the culture and the objectives that the owner has. Now, a company that can be scaled, they're the flip side of that. And they're already thinking in an innovative way. They're in a growth mindset. And they realize there's going to be obstacles along the road. What can we be doing and thinking in advance what those obstacles are and how to get around them? So those are the two differences.
Hey guys, we've been talking to John Russell, a principal advisor of the Russell Consulting Group. And John, I'm going to go off the grid for just a couple of seconds here and ask you some fun questions to kind of end our podcast tonight. Do you mind?
No, go right ahead.
Okay, favorite book?
My favorite book?
Yep.
Oh, I've got so many of them.
Well, just give me one you like a lot. How's that?
I love Earl Nightingale, because Earl Nightingale was a very wise man who helped to build out the whole idea of innovative thinking, and all the seminars that people go to now, the business related seminars. Of course, the E-Myth is a required book for all clients out there. If they're small business, the first homework assignment they have is you got to read the E-Myth so you can understand
Good for you.
what you are getting yourself into or what you're already buried in.
Yeah, and which role are you? You got that right. Okay.
And then there's another book called Build to Sell, and that was one of your questions about the philosophy.
Yep.
The company needs to build a strategy so that will be something worth a lot of money later on up the road.
All right. So the last movie you watched, or the last online deal you binged on? What did you watch? What did you watch?
I watched Harriet, and I loved Harriet.
Okay.
And I was astounded by the story. She was the woman who very much was instrumental in the Underground Railroad. And the recent movie we just saw last weekend was Ford versus Ferrari. And I'll tell you what, that's a movie about business. It's a movie about innovation, and it ties right into what I was talking about regarding strategy.
All right. So your last band, the last genre of music you went and listened to?
I went to listen to Johnny Lang and Buddy Guy.
Oh boy. Okay. That's two good guys right there, man. Awesome.
Good
Woohoo. Good for you. All right. And then the final question is, when you go out and eat, do you have like a favorite, don't name the restaurant, do you have like a favorite genre of food you really love to go eat? You took me to one place I love. Maybe that's it. What is your genre of food you like the most?
I would say actually there are two. One is Italian and the other one is Thai.
Hey, okay. Listen, guys, we've been talking to John Russell, Principal Advisor of the RussellConsultingGroup.com. John, thank you for being on. And why don't you go ahead and give them your contact number to kind of take us out tonight?
It is 512-217-3205, 512-217-3205, or you can reach me at john@therussellconsultinggroup.com. And I know that's long, so I apologize.
That's all right. It's no big deal. Hey guys, we want to thank you for listening to the Austin Biz Buzz, where we indeed build the buzz about Austin business. We want to thank our sponsor, Mike O'Neill, mkoneil.com. He's the Money Coach LLC, and he does corporate speaking, corporate training. We'll hope you join us next week. Be looking for this podcast on Apple, Google, YouTube, and on my podcast platform. Y'all have a great night. John, thank you, and have a good evening, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Bye.
Bye-bye.